Hello, all. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge that, at the time of recording, both the Writers Guild and Screen Actors Guild remain on strike. SAG has put forward a list of guidelines for how they would like both members and non-members to interact with the struck material, and to the best of my understanding, this video remains in compliance with those guidelines. Nevertheless, I would like to reiterate that Knights of the Nerds Table supports these strikes and the efforts of organizers everywhere to fight for fair wages and conditions for the working class. Thanks, and enjoy the video. Hello everyone, and welcome to Knights of the Nerds Table, and it is finally time. After 2 years of threatening to do this, both in my personal life and on the channel, I am finally talking about Star Trek, because we are midway through what might well be the greatest season of television that Star Trek has produced since at least 1999. So, like, subscribe, do all the things, because at long last, I am happy to share with you all why we should be watching Star Trek: Strange New Worlds. Firstly, as always for one of my videos, a quick history lesson. From 2005 to 2017, Star Trek was largely an inactive franchise, with the only exception being the films directed by J.J. Abrams. After the end of Star Trek Enterprise and the colossal flop that was Star Trek Nemesis, it felt like Trek would not be seen on TV ever again. This was, of course, until CBS announced the development of Star Trek Discovery for their fledgling streaming service, CBS All Access. What would follow has been, in my opinion, a new renaissance for Trek. In the past few years, CBS has produced either 5 or 6 new Trek series, depending on how you classify short Treks, but until the release of Strange New Worlds, this renaissance was missing something very specific. See, each of these new Trek series has always had an easy elevator pitch to describe it. It kind of goes like this. Star Trek Discovery is Star Trek does a prestige drama. Star Trek Picard is Star Trek does a dedicated character study of one of its most iconic characters. Star Trek Lower Decks is the Star Trek shitposting group come to life, or Rick and Morty without the misanthropy. And Star Trek Prodigy is the underappreciated family show that got totally screwed over and now has the distinction of being the only piece of Trek media not available on Paramount Plus, which is total BS. Hashtag save Star Trek Prodigy. So what's the elevator pitch for Strange New Worlds then? Well, I've heard an apocryphal story that after a long pitch meeting with all these different ideas like I mentioned above, one of the producers got frustrated and yelled, "What if we just do Star Trek?" Now, whether that story is true or not, that is absolutely the show that we got. After the serialized storytelling of Discovery and Picard, or the irreverent comedy of Lower Decks, Strange New Worlds is designed to be a modern throwback to classic Trek, with each episode being a standalone story. Director and Shrek veteran Jonathan Frakes noted that each of the directors was told to treat their episode like a movie with its own themes and color palette, and it shows. As with the best of episodic television, the writers, directors, and cast have the freedom to explore wildly different scenarios and genres from episode to episode. Now, while I love episodic television, and I'm probably going to have to make a video about it at some point. I actually prefer it to serialized television. Having this wide of a playground can be a double-edged sword. It means that the show is going to have something for everyone, but it also means that every episode could be a huge miss and break the momentum of the season or lose your audience. But here's the thing. That hasn't happened yet for Strange New Worlds. Every single episode of the 18 episodes to air at the time of recording have been superlative, and boy oh boy do they run the gamut. Highlights include the following episodes. Strange New Worlds, the pilot and a riff on the classic Star Trek First Contact Gone Wrong episode. The Serene Squall, a Fortress Under Siege episode with one of the coolest Trek villains ever, the space pirate Angel. The Elysian Kingdom, a full-on fairy tale on a spaceship. Ad Astra per Aspera, a courtroom episode that should be discussed in the same breath as Measure of a Man or 12 Angry Men. Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow, a star-crossed romance with time travel, Spock Amok, and Charades, a body swap and comedy of manners, respectively, examining the character of Spock and his relationship to Vulcan society. Those Old Scientists, a crossover with Lower Decks, and an absolute love letter to Trek fans everywhere. And, most recently, Under the Cloak of War, a deeply dark and haunting examination of how wars never really end for those who fought in them. Also, we're getting a musical, and oh my god, I'm so excited. Now, lest you think that this show lacks a solid through line for all of its standalone episodes, as with the best of modern episodic television, Strange New Worlds maintains the through lines with beautiful character arcs, such as the friendship between Chief Engineer Hemmer and Cadet Uhura, or the revelation of Una's true identity and how it impacts those on the ship, or, most recently, the developing romance between Spock and Nurse Chapel. Strange New Worlds makes sure to give each character time to breathe and develop throughout their season, and that's what keeps you hooked and coming back for more. Now, of course, none of these episodes would have gotten off the ground without their excellent cast. And even as Trek casts go, and in my opinion there's never been a bad one, this crew is spectacular. From day one, they have had a chemistry that some shows running 5 seasons or more wish they could achieve. I'd list standout performers, but frankly, when everyone in your cast is this good, there's no such thing as scene stealing. But I do want to make note of how they compare to their original counterparts. Of the 8 principal cast members, 6 of them are portraying characters who had previously appeared in the original series, and of those 6, 2 of them are portraying main cast members from the original series. Those 2 are, of course, Ethan Peck as Spock and Celia Rose Gooding as Uhura, and I'm happy to report that they both absolutely step up to the plate. Peck gives us perhaps the most overtly emotional Spock, which may sound like a bad thing, or not very faithful, but does go well with the fact that his Spock is a younger one who recently lost a family member and is still coming to terms with his place as a half-Vulcan in Vulcan culture. Meanwhile, Celia Rose Gooding provides us with an Uhura who is just starting off her career as a cadet, and Gooding has an abundance of scenes that, frankly, make me wish that the late Nichelle Nichols could have lived to see the show. The remaining 4, Pike, Chapel, Mbenga, and Una, don't really have a large enough presence in the original series to compare in the same way that we can compare Spock or Uhura, but each of them use the original series as a way to build on their performance and retroactively lend nuance to the original appearances. Now, I realize as I'm recording this that I'm assuming the viewer of this video is familiar with Star Trek on the whole, and that may not necessarily be the case. Now, while I'd love to take you on a guided tour through the Trek universe, a video like that would be over 2 hours long. Don't believe me? Jesse Gender already did one. It's brilliant. You should check it out. But the good news is that Trek experience is not a prerequisite to enjoy this show. Don't get me wrong, if you're a Trek fan, you will get a ton of callbacks and references, particularly in the Lower Decks crossover. But these stories 1000% hold up without them. The pilot tells you everything you need to know about each character's backstory, and then you're off to the races. I would go so far as to say that Strange New Worlds may be the best place for a brand new Trek fan to start. Don't get me wrong, the original series and The Next Generation are classics, but at the end of the day, they're decades old now. Their effects and some of their values haven't held up. It's the Seinfeld is unfunny principle. Something that was cutting edge at its time looks derivative by comparison because everyone else has been using its ideas for ages. Additionally, at the moment, Strange New Worlds is the only live-action show that, in my opinion, can say it doesn't have a single bad episode. Hell, I don't think it has an episode that's less than great, and I can guarantee you that that's something that no other live-action Trek show can say. So, if you love Trek, if you want to love Trek, if you love sci-fi, if you love romance, if you love fantasy, if you love horror, if you love comedy, if you love musicals, if you love good television, if you love men with amazing hair, Captain Pike. Strange New Worlds has something for you. It will make you laugh. It will make you cry. It will make you think. It will make you look to the stars and think about the future with optimism. This show is for everyone. So do yourself a favor. Beam on board the Starship Enterprise. You'll be glad that you did. And then come on back for more conversations around the Nerds Table. Live long and prosper.